What you're looking at right now is a full security audit of a Node.js backend API. Every critical vulnerability, every warning, and a section the AI flagged as uncertain because it refused to guess. This was generated by Claude Opus 4.8. One prompt, one terminal, no manual review. Opus 4.8 dropped yesterday, May 28, 2026. And in this video, I'm going to break down the 3 features that make this release genuinely different from everything before it. Then I'm going to show you exactly how I built this audit, live in the terminal, so you can see what this model is actually capable of. If you're a developer, a builder, or someone who wants to understand where AI tooling is actually going, this video is for you. Let's get started. Anthropic released Claude Opus 4.8 on May 28, 2026, yesterday as I'm recording this. And I want to be straight with you about something before we get into it. Anthropic themselves called this a modest but tangible improvement. Not a leap, not a revolution, a deliberate, focused upgrade. But here's why that framing actually matters. Because what changed isn't the context window or raw speed. What changed is how this model behaves when it's working alone on something hard. And for developers and builders, that's the shift worth paying attention to. Let me show you exactly what I mean. There are 3 things in this release that I want to focus on, and I'm going to go through them one by one because each one builds on the last. The first is dynamic workflows. Before this, when you gave Claude a complex task, it worked through it sequentially, one thing at a time. One context. Dynamic workflows changes that completely. You give it one prompt and it writes an orchestration script that spins up hundreds of parallel subagents in a single session. Each agent attacks a different part of the problem simultaneously. And here's what makes it different from just running things in parallel. Those agents challenge each other's findings. They try to disprove each other until the answers converge. Only the verified result comes back to you. You're not getting one AI's opinion. You're getting a result that survived scrutiny from multiple angles. The second is effort controls. You now have a dial. You can tell Opus exactly how much compute to apply to a task, from a quick, lightweight pass all the way up to deep, exhaustive analysis. For developers building production systems, this is important. You match the depth to what the task actually needs. And at the highest setting, what they call ultra code, that's what activates dynamic workflows automatically. One setting, full power. The third is honesty and self-awareness. And this is the one that got me. Every model before this would complete a task and tell you it's done. Confident. Clean, whether it was right or wrong. Opus 4.8 is different. Anthropic measured a more than 10 times reduction in overconfidence compared to Opus 4.7. When this model isn't sure about something, it tells you. It flags it. It tells you exactly what additional context it would need to give you a definitive answer. It stops saying done when it's only halfway certain. You're going to see exactly what that looks like in the demo. And it happened in a way I didn't fully expect. These 3 things together mean one thing for developers and builders. You now have a model you can deploy on something complex, walk away from, and actually trust what comes back. Let me show you where that matters most. Okay, so let me show you where this actually gets interesting. Because this isn't just a developer thing. These 3 features together hit differently depending on the industry you're in. Take legal, for example. Contract review. Lawyers spend hours, sometimes days, going through documents clause by clause. With dynamic workflows, you feed in a contract and boom, parallel agents start reviewing every section simultaneously. Liability, termination, intellectual property, jurisdiction, all at once. And here's what makes it special. The honesty feature means the model doesn't pretend to know something when it doesn't. If a clause is ambiguous, it gets flagged. In legal work, a confident wrong answer can destroy a deal. This helps prevent that. Now let's look at finance. Imagine analyzing quarterly reports across 5 different companies at the same time. One set of agents is evaluating revenue. Another is looking at debt. Others are running risk projections and identifying trends, all in parallel. And the output doesn't just give you a polished summary that sounds confident. It clearly separates what's supported by data from what's based on assumptions. And that distinction is everything when you're making investment decisions. Healthcare is another huge one. High volume, high stakes, no room for error. Patient intake, medication interactions, clinical documentation. The model processes everything quickly, and anything it's uncertain about gets flagged for human review automatically. It's not replacing doctors. It's helping make sure nothing slips through before a doctor takes a look. That's powerful. Now for e-commerce. This one's for the builders and creators watching. You know how long it takes to launch a product properly. Product descriptions, pricing strategies, marketing copy, email sequences. Now imagine doing all of that from a single prompt. Parallel agents working together across multiple products at the same time. What used to take an entire weekend can now happen in minutes. And then there's software engineering, which, surprise, is exactly what we're doing in this video. Security audits, codebase analysis, multiple modules being reviewed simultaneously. And it doesn't just tell you what it found, it also tells you what it's not sure about. And that right there, that's the demo. Let me show you. Okay, before we get into the demo, let me quickly show you what actually changed in the interface. Because there are a few things worth knowing before you start using this. First, the model selector. If you're in Claude.ai, you'll see Opus 4.8 now available in the model picker. That's your starting point. Make sure you're on the right plan, because Opus requires at least a Pro subscription to access. Now, the one I really want to show you, effort controls. Right next to the model selector, you'll see a new control that lets you choose how much compute Claude applies to your task. Think of it like a dial, light for quick tasks, deep for the heavy stuff. This is new. This wasn't in 4.7. And then in Claude Code, in your terminal, this is where dynamic workflows lives. When you set effort to the highest level, it activates automatically. You don't configure agents manually. You don't write orchestration code. You just set the effort, write your prompt, and the model handles the rest under the hood. That's it. Nothing overwhelming. The power is in what happens after you hit enter, which is exactly what we're about to see. I have a Node.js Express backend right here. 7 files, standard structure. Auth routes, user routes, a database layer, config file, and the main app entry point. Now here's the thing. This codebase has vulnerabilities baked into it. Real ones. The kind of issues that actually show up in production codebases. SQL injection, hard-coded secrets, broken authentication, missing input validation. Nothing exotic. Just the stuff that gets real applications compromised every day. And I want to be transparent. I built this codebase specifically for this demo, but every single vulnerability in here is based on real patterns I've seen in the wild. This isn't contrived. This is what insecure code actually looks like. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to set the effort to ultra code, which you just saw, and I'm going to give Claude one prompt. 1. No manual file-by-file instructions, no telling it where to look. Just a single prompt asking it to audit the entire codebase, classify every issue it finds, and, this is the important part, flag anything it's not confident about instead of guessing. Then we walk away and let it work. Let me show you what that looks like. So I took that prompt I showed you, pasted it directly into Claude Code, and let it run with Opus 4.8 and Ultra Code set as the effort level, which is the highest you can go. It took a couple of minutes. You saw it working through the files, planning its approach, running the modules in parallel. And when it came back, look at this output. First thing it gives us is a severity summary table. Every file, how many criticals, how many warnings, how many uncertain, clean, structured. At a glance, you can see exactly where the problems are concentrated. Now the critical findings. SQL injection in the login route. Direct string interpolation in a database query. Completely exploitable. Hard-coded secrets in the config file. Live API keys committed in plaintext. Anyone with repo access can forge valid tokens for any user. Broken authentication in the profile route. Any authenticated user can access any other user's data just by changing an ID in the URL. Mass assignment in the update route. An attacker can literally promote themselves to admin by passing a role field in the request body. These are real. These are the kind of vulnerabilities that take down real applications. But here's the part that got me. Scroll down to the uncertain section. It says, and I'm going to read this directly, these are items I cannot call definitively from source code alone. I'm flagging them rather than guessing. It found a potential race condition in the credit transfer function, but instead of calling it critical, it said it cannot confirm whether this is exploitable without knowing the PostgreSQL isolation level configured on the deployment server. It found a dependency that might have a known CVE, but instead of alarming you, it said it needs to verify whether your specific infrastructure configuration is affected. And then, this is the part that really stood out. It noticed that the code files had comments pre-labeling their own vulnerabilities, and it said it treated those as claims to verify, not facts. And in 2 places, those labels were wrong. It called those out. Think about that. It didn't just execute the audit, it audited the audit. That's a different level of thinking, and that's exactly what makes this model worth paying attention to. So let's zoom out, because what you just saw wasn't really about code auditing. That was just the proof. What you actually saw is a model that processes complex problems in parallel, cross-checks its own findings, and tells you honestly where its confidence ends. Any domain where wrong answers have real consequences, legal, finance, healthcare, security, you can now build tools that run autonomously and flag their own uncertainty before it becomes your problem. That's not a chatbot. That's infrastructure. For the developers watching, this is your signal to start automating the complex stuff, not just the easy repetitive tasks, the stuff you've been avoiding because you couldn't trust the output. That trust problem just got smaller. For anyone just getting started, you now know what the features are, where they matter, and what a real implementation looks like. The next step is yours. Drop a comment. I want to know what you'd build with this. See you in the next one.